This episode may contain language or discussions that may be offensive or triggering. Refer to the episode summary for details. Welcome to On Her Terms Defined. This is the third time, but I'm getting this right, audience. My name is Charlene Ketchum, and tonight I'm here with two wonderful, gracious educators, Miss Nikkei Anderson and Taryn Williams. We recorded this episode last Friday, and I love giving people teachable moments, so I'm sharing this. So we first recorded last Friday, and I'm recording on Zoom. And for those of you who record things on Zoom, pay attention to your view. Zoom records based on the setting that you are viewing it in. So if you have it on speaker only and you need to capture all of the screens, it won't. It will just record in the view that you have it in. Don't do what I did, because you may not have two gracious people who will allow you to re-record. So thank you, ladies, for joining me again. So first, before we launch into our conversation tonight, we are going to talk about ways that parents can empower their children as they navigate our new normal post, we're still in the middle of COVID-19, but as we readjust to the learning environment in this pandemic time, we will arm parents with some tools so that they can understand how to prepare their kids for going back to the traditional in-school environment. We will also outline some ways that you can explore homeschooling options. And we'll also talk about some ways you can combine the best of both worlds, how you can homeschool and utilize some resources from the public school system. So this is going to be a really enlightening conversation with these two educators. So first, I want to just make sure the audience knows a little bit about both of you. So Ms. Anderson, if we can start with you, if you can tell everyone about what you do and your platform.
Sure. I'm Nikkei Anderson. I am a blogger at thehomeschoolgenius.com, where I share education and resources for all things homeschool. And I am also a mom of two and a wife. I live in Georgia. So that's a little bit about me.
And Ms. Williams.
I'm Taryn Williams. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. I am a mother of two also, a young gentleman, 20, and a 10-year-old daughter. I am an educator, elementary education. This will mark my 13th year of teaching elementary setting. I have 2 years of special education setting as well. And out of those 13 years, I spent about 5 years in ELL classes, which is also known as English language learners. So usually that's the kids natives who comes in as English as their second language.
I don't think I remembered you saying that last time. Wow. Hey, this is really cool.
I forgot to mention that. I'm like, there's probably something important to say.
I'm so impressed by the wealth of experience between the two of you. What inspired each of you to go into education and become educators?
Well, I guess I'll start first. I decided to go into education. I originally wanted to become a university professor. So I went and got my master's degree in educational leadership, but God had other plans. So we ended up homeschooling, of course. But yes, I originally wanted to become a professor. And I also was very interested in curriculum development, particular for public schools, to help children to better connect with their education. And I really wanted to be a part of that system. But again, like I said, God had other plans. So here we are, homeschooling.
And I got my start. My mother was the principal of my elementary school in Missouri, and it was a private school, and it was a small school, and it was predominantly Black. So just the relationship I saw that she had with the student body and the parents, she called the kids sweetheart love bugs, and just that kind of connection made me want to go into teaching and continue that same type of connection with students. And of course, with my love of learning, I love learning new things, and I like to kind of spread that with the other students, well, with other kids as well. And that's basically the gist of for me.
Wonderful. What I love about what both of you said is there was a family connection that inspired both of you to go into education? For you, Ms. Anderson, it was having children, wanting to homeschool your kids. And then for you, Ms. Williams, it was just the desire to emulate what you saw in your mom being an educator. And I remember when I was in school, when you talked about the teachers hugging and kissing, and I don't know how much they get to necessarily do of that these days, but I know when I was growing up, our teachers hugged, kissed us. We also got hit with the ruler or with their hand. And I'm an 80s baby, so I know that they weren't supposed to be doing that at that time, but it was all a form of love. My teachers, they would cook, and I don't think you can bring home cooked food to schools anymore, but back then, they could
Not
cook.
really.
They can't, can they?
No,
Yeah.
no, unfortunately not. We cook in the classroom, like with crock pots, but that's about it.
Well, we used to have collard greens and everything and fried chicken. My teachers, like once a month, we celebrated like academic success and things, and they would cook. The teachers would, it was basically a potluck, but it was the teachers bringing in all the food. And it's just, I didn't realize like how not common that was until, because I grew up, and I'm from St. Louis, Missouri too, like you, Ms. Williams, but I grew up going to the St. Louis City public schools in North St. Louis. So they were predominantly Black. So my teachers were predominantly Black. And it was just a completely different culture until when I went to high school. I was in the desegregation program, which put me in one of the schools that was in West County, Missouri, and most of my teachers were not Black. I was in high school at that point. So I think that was the bonus for me, because I think as kids, the young kids really need to see people who look like them and get that nurturing from people who look like them. And so at least I had the benefit of having gotten that all the way up until the 9th grade. But when I went to West County schools in the DSEG program, it was like, there's no affection. There may have been affection towards other kids, but it wasn't directed towards me. And so it was like a huge culture shock, because I was used to growing up with the affection, but also the accountability, because like I said, those teachers, they laid hands on you. And they told your parents they laid hands on you. And it wasn't a problem.
Oh yeah. No. And actually I kind of think of it as like a family outside of a family within school settings, especially within predominantly Black school settings. That's definitely an experience that I have had as well too, growing up in my mother's school, again, which was predominantly Black. And it was like coming to school with cousins and aunties, and it's that camaraderie that you have with each other, definitely. And even with the public school, because I went from private to public, which is, we still had that same connection. I had a math teacher that used to have a long ruler stick, and she used to tap you on your hand, like pay attention. And we dare not went home and tell our parents, because we already knew. We told our parents we were going to get it anyway, because the teacher, we just knew, respect the teachers, and the teacher was going to be right, and you need to pay attention, because I'm gonna take the teacher side. So that was just what we grew up with, and it always just felt like when I leave home, I'm going home to my second family. So definitely that warmth was definitely there. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, it wasn't like that for me. I grew up in Rhode Island. So our schools were not like that. My husband, he grew up all over. He was in the military, his family. But when he ever told me that the teachers would like give him paddles and stuff, I was like, what? It didn't happen in Rhode Island. I was so shocked. I was like, what? Really? He's like, yeah, I would get a paddle from the principal and they would let my parents know. And, it was this big thing. Yeah, we didn't have any of that like family environment, unfortunately.
Yeah, but what's amazing is your children get to benefit from it in the form of the homeschooling community. So if you would describe that, because a lot of people in the audience may not necessarily know what homeschooling looks like. A lot of people may, when they hear it, they may envision that it's like Little House on the Prairie. It's just, for a lot of people, that's their frame of reference, and not, like dissing that, but it's a lot different from that as well. So can you describe a little bit about like what homeschooling looks like?
Sure. Homeschooling has definitely evolved. So it's no longer, the family and the boonies that aren't around anyone, anybody can homeschool. African Americans are the fastest growing demographic in homeschooling. So you're seeing more people of color homeschooling. You're seeing homeschoolers in cities. There is a wonderful homeschool community in Atlanta and all of the greater Atlanta areas. They have like great home groups, like there's just so many of them. And homeschooling looks for us. I just came back from actually a homeschool group trip. We went out to the boonies, and the kids learned how to shoot rifles. They learned how to do archery. They learned about falconry, went on a nature walk. And this was with our homeschool group. And we were there all day. And so if I sound tired, that's why. They're literally all day long. Didn't get home until like near to 5 o'clock, just about. Oh. And so I had to take a mini nap before this, but we were there all day. And it was so much fun. I shot a rifle for the first time, and so did my kids. And it was a lot of first experiences. And, I love to tell my kids, like, anytime we have a first time experience, I'm like, we're creating new neurological pathways by this new experience. And they're like, okay. But it was so much fun. My husband got to come along as well. So it was nice. There was a lot of dads there. Okay. And that's something also that you're seeing a lot in the homeschool community, is a lot of dads are very involved in the education of their children. So I was excited to see a lot of dads there. And, we have a lot of longtime friends that also came with us. And so this is great because we get to have this experience together, and my kids get to grow up with other children. We've been homeschooling for 6 years. It's our 6th year, and our kids basically have friends that they've met 6 years ago when we first started in our homeschooling group, and those friendships have been able to develop. So it looks a lot different from what a lot of people perceive as far as like socialization. We had a whole day full of socialization. Our children, they have friends. I have longtime friends as well. And both parents are usually heavily involved in the homeschooling process as well, both the mom and the dad, if it's a 2-parent household. Yeah.
And so there's that entire sense of community. I mean, you really have reinvented and expanded your community within the learning environment.
Couldn't do it without a community. It would be very, very, very lonely without a community, and difficult too.
So how does it work in terms of, so like for me, for example, I joke and tell people I can only count to 10. Like I failed geometry. I'm just keeping it real. In high school, I failed geometry. I had to take it over again in summer school. The teacher felt bad for me. I mean, I did the work. I think I earned like a D or something, but I got a C, and that's not my area. Right. So my child will really struggle and suffer. I would skip over all of that. So what happens when there's a parent like me who, can only count to 10? What do you do in terms of your community, and how do you collaborate with other parents to kind of fill those gaps and deficiencies?
Well, there's a couple of things we do. One is do something called cooperatives, where parents get together and they teach their strengths. So, me, I was an English major. And so I would teach like reading and language arts and all of that jazz. And I have taught a couple of classes in the past. I've also taught some Black history as well. And we all get together, and whatever our strength is, we hold classes, and we will enroll our children in those classes, and they will get to learn from another parent. And the great thing about this is a lot of them are ex-teachers. So you're finding we have ex-teachers, we have ex-lawyers, we have ex-doctors, we have ex-engineers. And so it's a very, very well-educated community of parents. But I need to put out there, you do not have to be super like educated, master's, doctorate degree to homeschool your child. All you need is a high school diploma. They also have a program called the K-12 program, where it's basically school at home. So the government puts the curriculum together for you. Your child can get online, and it's basically virtual learning for your child. So if you have zero experience, but you would like for your child to get that homeschool experience, you can enroll in a K-12 program. It's technically not homeschooling because you are along with the school district and what they're doing. But it is an alternative if a parent is feeling like, I really want to homeschool, but I don't necessarily feel like, I'm adequate or equipped enough to homeschool. So that's another option. The best option, I would say, is joining a co-op. There's also a lot of places that will host homeschool students. So for instance, we just went to, a place that hosted us, and, they taught us about falconry and rifles and how to use weapons safely and all of that. And so we were hosted. There's a lot of art galleries that will host us. And so there's just so many opportunities for your child to learn where it takes the pressure off of you. Of course, there's a lot of online, classes that your child can enroll in as well. I have enrolled my children in a lot of online classes with subjects that they really want to learn, but I'm not well versed in. Coding is one of them. My children are super coders. I know nothing about coding. Everyone gives me the credit when I share on social media. I want to put it out there.
Fabulous. You are
I know
fabulous.
nothing about coding. Thank you. I know nothing about coding. My children are self-taught when it comes to coding. They know how to research the classes. They know how to research the tutorials, and they will create amazing things. They've done amazing animations. They've done just amazing, amazing things, computer programming and coding, and I know nothing about it. So don't worry if you're a parent that it's like, I know nothing. I don't know how this is going to work. You will find that your child will, like, once they find a passion, they will do whatever it takes to go ahead and teach themselves. All you have to do is provide them with the resources.
Wow. So this is a question for both of you. So how does a parent determine, let's say that your child is currently in an in-school, traditional school setting. So how do you as a parent determine if homeschooling would be a good fit for your child? Should you, would Ms. Williams, would the teacher be able to give some insights on what type of learner? Does it, is it based on that child's learning style or how much socialization they need? What are some factors that parents might want to consider if they want to determine if this is a good option for them?
I know for me, I would definitely say I think in the bottom line, it's just a parent choice. I know schools can offer a lot of services, especially if students are struggling with any type of intellectual delay, or, if they need special services for, any type of mental disorders or anything. I know schools can offer services to assist. But I would say overall, it really just generally depends on the parent and the child, of having that parent choice. Because from my opinion, when I see students being taken out of the school environment, it's usually because of the school environment itself. Maybe the school is a little rough and they feel that their child isn't learning. Well, they probably just feel like their child is not learning as much as they should. Or what we mentioned last time before with their, if a child that's constantly getting in trouble in school, I've had parents had concerns about the present to school pipeline situation where the child is getting suspended too much and they feel like, it's not fair, it's unjust for their child. So they will pull the school out, their child out of the school. Those are the two main cases that I've seen as a teacher in my lifetime. So that's why I say it's pretty much a parent choice of what they feel will be the best route for their child. I encourage both. I think at the end of the day, a parent know their child and know what they're capable of. So if a parent advocate for their child to be homeschooled, I will fully support that decision and help a parent out whichever way I can, assisting with that, with that decision.
And that's, I just wanted to throw in there also that, I mentioned to y'all last time how my son, he was in this pre-K program that was in alignment with the public school system. And when I was talking to his teachers, the topic of homeschool did come up. And one thing that his teachers were saying was, I hope that the next teacher that Micaiah has, that's his name, I hope that the next teacher he has really understands him, really understands his personality and the way he learns, because he does learn very differently. Of course, we have a lot of different learning styles with children, but that was that was something that they actually said to us. And I said, well, we were thinking about homeschooling, because even as a parent, I knew that the traditional classroom, I knew it wasn't going to be something that, he just likes to move around. He's very kinesthetic learner. He has to touch things. Rote memorization is not going to work with him. A lot of the school model, they do like the linear model where, you have to master one stage to go to the next. And the type of learner that he is, that wouldn't work for him either. So they caught it. I was really surprised. And at the time, I didn't really know exactly to the extent of what they were talking about until I actually started really teaching him. And I'm like, okay, I see what they were talking about. But when I mentioned that, we might homeschool and we were thinking about it, they were like, I definitely think he would do very well the homeschooling. So ultimately, it was our decision, but the teachers did kind of pick up on a few things where they might see, he may have trouble thriving in these particular areas because of the way he learns, or he might have some kind of clashes with the teachers because of the way his personality is. And they were kind of able to pick up on that. So that was really interesting to me.
Yeah. And I appreciate that you were able to receive those insights from the teacher, because I know a lot of times, and I've talked about this with friends and colleagues, sometimes people are understandably so very sensitive when it comes to someone saying, okay, your child may not be like the rest of, they may not learn in the same way as the majority, because that's not a negative thing. As you noted, we all have our different learning styles. And I think what's very challenging in the traditional school setting is that because the teacher is managing so many different personalities, and so many different personalities bringing so much baggage into the classroom, that they really can't accommodate a lot of individuality. And that may be one of the reasons that I've heard several things that both of you mentioned as rationales for homeschooling, particularly as it relates to Black children, trying to avoid that prison pipeline, being concerned about bullying, or, not all school environments, learning environments are warm and fuzzy with all the classmates. So maybe wanting to pull your child out of that. And then also maybe wanting to accommodate your child's unique learning needs. So just to talk about for a moment, because Ms. Anderson, you mentioned earlier that Blacks are one of the fastest groups in homeschooling. And I've read so many articles about that. So from both of your perspectives, outside of the three things that I outlined, the prison pipeline, avoidance, bullying in school, and wanting to address individual learning styles, are there any other reasons that is kind of fueling all of these parents of color now exploring homeschooling as a viable option?
I would say the word on the street would be the microaggressive racism. Yeah. So it's not the overt stuff that you see. It's the stuff that will have a child go home and question themselves, because it's not like the teacher overtly said anything to them or did anything to them. It's how the teacher made them feel, how they were treated, and things of that nature. So that's a lot of what I'm hearing personally from parents that are choosing to pull their children out of a public school. They're trying to avoid the psychological damage that they can already see that their child is starting to experience from certain teachers. And so I would definitely say that is something that has been discussed in a lot of the Black homeschool groups that I'm a part of.
Yeah. And I talk about that with friends.
Yeah, absolutely. And also I think I'm sorry. And I think also it stems from your demographic background that you're into, because I know in some areas, especially here in St. Louis, Missouri, we do have those predominantly white areas where children of color has moved out to those areas, and they have experienced that microaggression, or in some sense, they have actually experienced complete racism, within those school systems. And so I do have friends who say, hey, well, what about this school district? Should we move out here? Or these are some of the things I'm noticing with my kids now that we're out here. And, I would tell them, well, try a private school, or, try, and they have asked, what about homeschool? And I'm like, if you have the resources and the time, or, I say go for it. But yeah, from what Ms. Anderson is saying, I agree with her 100% in that aspect of, dealing with the microaggression and racism within the schools, again, depending on those school demographics, because, that is a major concern for, some of my friends who have moved out in certain areas around in Missouri. But I'm pretty sure that can be anywhere.
Yeah. And I know it's
especially with today's society.
Yeah, it's, and it's tricky because, a lot of times parents, because you all try so hard to provide the best environment and the best options for your children. And so I know a lot of parents, including friends of mine, who've moved to particular areas to be in certain school districts. And it may be the best school district in terms of, amenities and rankings. But when you talk about you have a Black child, that's an entirely different set of criteria. And you don't know it a lot of times until you get there, unless you have people, who are in the district and can tell you. And, from my experience, I just, it was what you were talking about, Ms. Anderson. None of it was just blatant, but there was a lot of just, it was a lot. The undertones of things from teachers and from the students and everything, because the school I went to was in a really affluent area. So you had a little bit of everything. And so looking at my experience that I had in high school, it would be really hard for me to voluntarily send my child to that environment, particularly in this day and time, because I think that we really have to try to be aware of what were the choices that we're making to try to make our children as psychologically intact and empowered as possible. Yes. And they spend so much time at school, and it's interesting what you said earlier, Ms. Anderson, when you said you noticed your son needing to be able to touch things and do different things as part of his learning style once you started working with him a lot. A lot of parents have had some epiphanies, and Ms. Williams, I'm sure you've got parents calling you saying, now I see what you've been saying, because over this last year, they're getting it. They're getting it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and they actually starting to see some of the issues that their child is actually facing in regards of their learning, or in regards of following simple directions. At home, it doesn't seem as apparent, when you're at home, but, within the school setting, when teachers have about 25 other kids in the classroom and you're telling everyone, take out your notebook and a pencil and turn to page 65. And I have a child who will take out a pencil and like, okay, now what did you say next? And what do I, it's, again, sometimes it's just understanding that, wow, my child really may have some of these issues is following those simple 3 steps of directions. And, maybe I understand why they're sometimes lost in the classroom, because they're not processing as I thought that they would process as the other children are. So yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. I've definitely heard parents say, like, my child is actually a problem. It's not just, it's not just the teacher. So, it validates. A lot of teachers are getting validation over the last year. How concerned?
Right. It's like, finally. And I think it's
like, I hate that it had to come out like this. Now you know.
Well, I know. Funny story. I actually have a kid that I have in Zoom. He had a parent that sat right to him in Zoom, like while we were doing virtual learning. So I used to say, like, why is the parent sitting right there? Let him, figure his own way out and do his work. And now that we're in person, so they signed for him to come back in person. And I think within the first week of in person, by the second week, I have him sitting next to me because he's just all over the place in the classroom. I'm like, your shoes off, all of your content is on the floor, your mask is not over your face. I'm like, babe, just come sit right next to me. Let me get you together. So yeah, it happens. So, they just become our babies too. I'm like, come sit next to me.
So now that you mentioned that, so how has this transition been, or I'm trying to think of a way to, and you can respond to this as much as you feel comfortable doing so, but I wonder, like, how has the transition been back to the traditional school environment during these COVID times? Has there been a learning loss academically? I know that the kids were still doing virtual learning, but depending on the capabilities of the parents and the availability of the parents, because a lot of people were still juggling work while they were trying to help their kids with their academics. So how has there been a significant learning loss with the students?
Absolutely. Honestly, yes. And I think that was something that we all expected anyway. And I think as teachers or parents as well, I think everyone have pretty much just done the best we could, expecting the worst, but still giving the best that you can give within that situation. So have those learning been lost? Absolutely, it has. We had kids who, unfortunately, actually had a kid who took his life back in February. So we had kids who suffer from depression and everything. So it took a lot of toll on us teachers virtually, reaching out to our kids and making sure that they're okay. And we're trying to do it all virtual. So, it was hard. Learning has been lost, but now that we're back in person, for the kids who have come back, I see them, they're more energetic. They're ready. I think at this point, now that they're back in school, they saw how hard it was trying to learn virtual. So I think now that they're back in school, they are actually taking this opportunity a little bit more serious now. So, I mean, you walk in my classroom, you can hear a pin drop when I ask them, okay, let's, open up our books, get your computers on. We're going to open up Canvas and we're going to work on this assignment. They're there just like that. So I think it was an eye opener for them also to say, hey, virtual learning was kind of hard. So now that I'm back in person, I'm getting back into the groove. I want to learn. So speaking from my experience, it's less behaviors. Of course, it's less kids in the classroom. And I see that they're a little bit more focused and more motivated within the setting that we have. But, and it's no way of getting around it. It just definitely has. Yes.
Yeah. Are there any things that parents should be doing right now to try to compensate for that, or what should parents be doing to try to help their kids get to where they need to be?
I don't know. I probably would have this might be an unpopular opinion, but I really feel that this is a new thing that we have all experienced. So I've always tell parents, just keep doing what you're doing, keep providing those opportunities for them, keep them motivated with learning. There are a lot of if you can afford tutoring, give them tutoring. But, at the same time, I'm just like, give them grace, because kids actually will learn within their own pace. As I said before, I had kids who started off this school year below basic. And by the end of the school year not the end of the school year, but midway during the school year, a lot of them had moved up to being proficient in advanced. So, it can happen, it will happen. And I think, with this whole new environment, is just, give the kids grace. Continue to provide those opportunities for learning. If you can get tutoring. If you can enroll them in summer school, enroll them in summer school. I think the bottom line for parents to do to help their child, just to catch up, is just to, just continue to be supportive. If all is not the end, if they get an F in algebra and calculus, again, they were faced with something very hard. So don't be hard on them. If summer school is available, give them summer school. I don't know. It's just like, you just got to give them grace. We teachers, we had grace. Everyone pretty much gave each other grace during this pandemic. And it's just real. We have to realize that a lot of these kids, they lost sports, they lost prom, they lost, they're dancing, they miss hanging out with friends. Just provide them with that support and love, and just say, hey, you know what? We messed up college algebra this year, but don't worry, we're going to support you. We're going to give you the help that you need. Reach out to some friends who may teach math, ask the teacher for extra support, extra help. I know a lot of teachers are willing to do it, but I just tell parents, don't stress it. Just continue to be supportive for your child, and just understand the place that we're in.
Yeah. I love that you emphasized grace, because I don't know if y'all read that book, Tiger Mom. It came out years ago. It's a really interesting read about this Chinese mom who was really, I think she wrote the book, or her daughter did. But she was like hardcore in terms of just academics. Everything had to be perfect. And her children really resented her for it, because she just placed academics above well-being. And I know that a lot of parents right now, and I understand, college applications and things like that are highly competitive. And a lot of parents are thinking 10 steps down the road, and they're thinking, okay, we got to catch up because we missed this entire year to do all these academics and volunteer things, all those other things that look good on college applications. So right now, there are some parents sitting somewhere trying to figure out, how can we make up for this year we quote unquote lost? And that kid is feeling a lot of that pressure, and a lot of them were probably feeling that pressure before then, but now it's magnified because you couple that with everything else that's happening in the world. So for both of you, like in general, like how do parents balance their children's academic performance with their emotional well-being when, these things are necessary? Grades do matter. The transcript matters, the application, credentials matter for colleges and things. So how do you as a parent do the best you can do while trying to make sure this human that, you're grooming for the world is actually well when you send them off to the next stage?
Well, we practice something in our homeschool called whole child education. And this is what I coach other homeschooling families on. And it's the premise that, a child is more than their academics. They're more than their cognitive abilities. They've actually have 6 selves that need to be nurtured and developed. And, so to help parents out that might feel like, their child has lost something, know that your child has different areas that could possibly need attention, like their emotional intelligence, their social intelligence, and emotional and social health as well. Their physical health, what they eat, how their bodies challenges itself. Because, a physical health and children being active is actually beneficial to their brain development. So you actually get to benefit academically, ensuring that your child gets their daily exercise in, as well as ensuring that your child eats a very healthy, balanced diet as well. Very great for their cognitive development. And so if you're worried, about academic portion, try to focus on other areas, and you will probably see their academics start to increase, their academic skills start to get better and strengthen as you focus on those. Check in with your children, check in with them emotionally, see how they're doing. The other selves, are also creative and spiritual. So creative, what does your child believe that they're born to do? What puts that spark in your child's eye? For my children, it's definitely animation, especially for my oldest child. That is his dream, and he loves to do it, and he's very good at it. And, he will just sit at the computer and he will write the script, the story out, and he will, he'll figure out how to do the coding, and he'll draw the animations himself, and he's got his little tablet. And so he'll do all of that. And that's just something that makes his eyes sparkle, and he can spend hours on that. And sometimes I'm like, oh, you don't need to spend that much time sitting on a computer. You're just 11 years old. But when I think about it, I'm like, man, he's incorporated like language arts and grammar and, and reading, and he's incorporated, math, and he's incorporated like so many different subjects into one just by, being creative. And so think of your child as a creative being, and focus on what they love to do, and help them to develop in those areas. And that will probably, transfer over to their academic life as well, because whatever kids are doing, they're sharpening some type of skill. If you follow me on social media, you know that I'm always looking up the benefits. We went to the park the other day and we did something as simple as we shot slingshots, the little plastic ones. Yeah. And when I looked up the benefits of shooting slingshots, I was like, wow, we're not just shooting slingshots here. Right. Like there's actually something going on in the child's brain that is like, okay, I have to draw, and I have all that scientific stuff that has to come into play in order for it to work. That is what their brains are, assessing and learning. And so everything that your child does just about is something where they are learning. Children are always learning. It's what they do. It's what they're good at. And they don't have to necessarily be sitting in a classroom to do it. They don't necessarily have to be reading a textbook to do it. They are always learning. So, that's another thing I would like parents to relax a little bit about is they're learning. They might not be learning from the textbook, but there's something that they're learning. And if you can focus on what is it that my child is learning, it'll kind of help you to relax about the learning loss, because as Taryn said, everything will all work itself out. They'll get there, they will eventually get there. So it's okay. Yeah. They're going to get there.
Right. And absolutely. And I agree with what you were saying, Nikki, about the whole child. And I think a lot of times, sometimes parents may forget that. And even sometimes as teachers too, we kind of, forget that, there's more to a child than just academics. Mm-hmm. So making sure in a classroom, you provide those other avenues where kids can be kids, where they can have their downtime and, be themselves. So I know for my classroom, before we start our day, we have morning meetings, and our morning meetings is where we're able to, express our thoughts and ideas. It's a safe space. So sometimes I will have a topic of the day. I kind of let them express what's on their mind. Kids are actually, they're watching, they're seeing what's going on in the world. They're exposed to a lot more stuff than what we think. So, a lot of times they bring the discussions to class, and I'm like, okay, well, you want to talk about that? Let's go. Like, what do you think? So, giving them that time to have their voice and their opinions in a safe space, and, just allowing them to be able to get that out as well. And I believe I mentioned before, another thing I use is, journaling, letting students get their opinions and ideas out, through journaling. And, sometimes if they want to share, they share. If they want to share, they don't have to share. And, it's totally up to them. It's something that they can keep private for themselves. But as long as they're given that outlet, that opportunity to just express themselves with their way, whether it's verbal or by written expression, I will allow that within the classroom. And then sometimes at the end of the day, like about 10 minutes while we're waiting for the bell and the buses to come pick up, sometimes we just sit around and just have a basic conversation. Oh, well, you have football. Tell me about football. What's going on? When is the game? All right. I'm come out there to the game and cheer you on. So again, just, for those kids to kind of, to balance their life with learning, and then, with the other stimulus of what's going on within the world, just provide an opportunity to just remember their kids and let them be themselves, let them express what they're thinking without us always telling them, well, I wouldn't say without us telling them what to think, but, just let them arrive to conclusions with their own experiences and what they pick up around the world, just giving them an opportunity to be expressive.
Yeah. What I love about what both of you just said is just that empowerment component, because we talk so much about adults finding their voices and being empowered, but, we're born with that. Kids are very outgoing. A kid will tell, if you want to know how you look for real, Ask a kid, the younger, the better.
Oh, that's okay. Oh, yeah.
If they got the words, they going to tell you, you toe up, whatever it is they're thinking, they're going to tell you. But then we teach them. And part of it is, etiquette and how to be kind and everything and empathetic. And we should teach them that. But so often with our lessons, we reprogram the way that they receive and interpret their own feelings and responses. And so what I love about what both of you just said is you're really helping restore their voices and teach them that your voice matters and here's how to use it effectively and when. And also you're giving them that ability to say, you know what, I don't want to share this. I have this self-care outlet to journal, or spend this time on my computer coding because this is what makes me happy. This is what relaxes me, but I don't necessarily have to share that with you or anybody else all the time. This can just be just for me. And so you're both teaching them self-care as well. Whereas a lot of us, we're having to learn and redefine those things or define it to begin with as adults. And so I love that you're teaching kids how to be empowered with their voices, how to know that they can keep some things to themselves, how to practice self-care. That's awesome. Because, they will be healthier, more well-rounded, emotionally balanced adults as a result of it.
Yeah. And that's one thing I love about homeschooling is that I'm learning as well. Like I'm learning alongside my children. So when we're going over, we have this book that I just picked up about emotional intelligence and social skills and things like that. I'm learning some of this stuff too, like I'm actually learning. And so that's the exciting part is that you get to fix yourself as your child gets to, have this nice clean slate of, okay, I'm aware of my emotional self and I'm aware of my boundaries and I'm aware of what makes me happy, what makes me excited, and I'm aware of how to think and people aren't teaching me what to know. And, so I love that I'm able to learn alongside of them, as well in some aspects. And so it's actually helping me. I know a lot of parents, a lot of homeschool parents can vouch for the fact that they're learning just as much, if not more, than their children, during this process. They're learning a lot about themselves and where it's an opportunity to heal yourself, really, because you are learning alongside your child and you're learning so much about yourself through the entire homeschool journey process. So it's been fun. It's been amazing.
I learn as well from my students so much, but I'm also like unlearning a lot of practices that I learned when I was younger, thinking that it was okay. And now what my teacher did is so, this is just how teaching goes. So I'm actually learning and unlearning, practices that were probably once fine back then, but now it's not so acceptable now. It's a great experience, working with kids because it's a roller coaster of learning.
So with that roller coaster though, how do you find balance and time for your own self-care, both as parents, as educators, and teachers as educators? Like, how are you balancing self-care while helping nurture these tiny humans?
It starts off with boundaries, of course. So, and knowing your boundaries, knowing your triggers, and letting your family know what your boundaries and your triggers are, when you might need to take a moment and when you need a break. And so, that's one of the things I'm learning to maneuver, so to speak, is making sure that I set my boundaries, making sure that I'm aware of my triggers and acting accordingly. Also, just what we did today just reminded me of wow, incorporating self-care into the entire family. So we all know we need to exercise. We all know we need vitamin D and sunlight and all of that. And so being able to just take my family on a nature walk and just be with nature and have that sunlight shining down and producing all the vitamin D in your body and getting that exercise in is very crucial for self-care. As we know, it reduces the cortisol levels, it reduces anxiety. And so I just was like, wow, I was out there and I was like, I feel so great, but the great thing is that my entire family feels great because we're all doing it together. And so that's another way you can incorporate self-care if you don't necessarily have the time to take for yourself. Involve the entire family into the activity, go for a family walk around the neighborhood. One thing I love about my neighborhood is you're always seeing families just walking together around 7 p.m. We live in Georgia, so, it's still light out here around 7 p.m. And that's when the sun is going down and it's nice and cool outside. So you see all the families just walking around and getting their exercise together. And so that's one tip I would give is to make it a family thing. Everyone needs to eat, right? Everyone needs to exercise. Everyone needs the sunshine and vitamin D. Everyone needs to, do all those things. So why not just collaborate and make it a family effort?
Right. And I would say, understand that everything that you probably want to get done is not going to get done in one day. And it's okay if it doesn't get done, take care of the most important things first. And then for me, I give myself a cutoff time. I try to set a schedule for myself. Okay, from this time to this time, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. But, there are times when I don't get to finish, but I know 8 o'clock, that's my cutoff time. If it's not done by a certain time, I'll put it away. I will get back with it. I just make another schedule for that to happen for the next day. And, I will get my shower in, get my stretches in, and turn on my favorite TV show, my guilty pleasure, my Atlanta Housewives, or, I love reality TV. So, like my guilty pleasure is the crazy reality TV shows. So I'm like, hey, that's my happy place. So, just you got to make time for yourself, just making time for yourself and understand everything's not going to get done and it's going to be okay.
Right.
Yes.
And start small, that's one tip I like to give parents is start small, because self-care can be overwhelming sometimes. You think that I have to just carve out this entire hour to soak in a bubble bath or, get my nails done. But if you don't have an hour, if you're a new mom and a nursing mom and you've got multiple kids, if you don't have that kind of time, you can start with just 5 minutes, a day, and do whatever you need to do in those 5 minutes to establish peace. So if you need to pray, if you need to meditate, if you want to read a book, a page or two from one of your favorite books, if you want to, I don't know, scroll through social media, whatever, I don't think that will give you peace though. So don't do that. But whatever you need to do to give you peace, start small and set the timer on your phone and say, I'm going to take 5 minutes to stretch, or I'm going to take 5 minutes to run in place and do what you need to do. And you'll find that 5 minutes, gradually increase to 10, 15 minutes. And you might set it to 5 minutes and you might be like, oh, the baby's still sleeping. I can get this done or that done or do this. And so you just never know, but start small. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I got to carve out this mass amount of time to dedicate to myself. You can literally just start with 5 minutes. And I love the first 15. So I love, like, when you wake up in the morning, dedicating that first 15 to doing something that help you, again, establish that peace, whether that's writing out your to-do list or, doing that stretch or prayer or meditation. They say that the first 15 minutes sets the trajectory for your day. And so all it really takes is 5 to 15 minutes and start there. And then you can, gradually increase, as time goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember being a new mom, my escape was Target. I know that was like the joke of everything, but I really love, like, when I got a chance to get away from my daughter when she was a baby, I would go to Target and probably spend 30 minutes just going up and down the aisle at Target.
Yes.
I was
solo shopping trips.
Yeah. I did that during COVID.
Yes,
I needed
they don't know
to
that's
get
the
out.
best time.
Yeah, it was like, oh my gosh, I need to get out of the house because we couldn't go anywhere when everything first started. Like in St. Louis, Missouri, we had a stay-at-home order, and so I was nervous because, at that time we just thought COVID was like living on all the surfaces and everything you touched, it was going to be absorbed to your skin or something crazy. But I would go to Target sometimes and I would, sanitize the handles on the cart and all that stuff. But just to be out and there's something relaxing about Target. Even if you don't buy everything you look at, it was soothing to me. So yeah,
it's relaxing until you get to the cash register.
Right.
That too.
Yeah. Well, I will say,
then you wonder, how did all this stuff get in my cart?
Yeah, I was going strictly, I would get like some kitty litter or something, but I was like, I can't be coming here spending money every time I'm making my go somewhere trip to Target. So I feel you. That resonated with me when you spoke on Target. And now that it's kind of normal again, like everybody's back at Target. That's the other thing. It was so nice to shop there then because nobody was really going to the store.
Right.
And so it was so peaceful and just like, it was, there was hardly anything that you might really need on the shelf, but it was still really peaceful.
Yes.
Now everybody else is back up in Target, so it's not the same.
Right.
True.
Before we wrap up, I want to highlight, I know we talked about this on our first recording, but I wanted to highlight that before the audience today. So for parents who are thinking, homeschooling sounds interesting, but I still would like to have some of the resources that the public school system offers. Like I want my kid to be able to go to that geometry class or go to PE. Is it possible for you to homeschool and then still use some of those resources that the public school system offers?
Absolutely. And for parents, I would say reach out to your local school district. As I said before, your taxes pay for those services. So I would just say reach out to your local school district, let them know what your interests are, and they will be able to accommodate you with those interests. I will give you an example with here in St. Louis, Missouri. My daughter attends a school, Hazelwood School District. She's part of the gifted program. If I were to pull her out to homeschool her, but I wanted her to attend the gifted school, they would happily oblige. So they will provide a bus transportation to pick her up from my home and take her to their gifted program, which for a lot of time the gifted students go to a gifted school once a week. They can participate in the sports, they can participate in certain programs and in certain classes as well. So it's an absolutely yes. And I'll just say reach out to your local school district, and they will be able to assist you with what you need to do to get those services going for your child.
Perfect.
And it should go along as well for special services too. So if your child is special needs, they should be able to provide special services for your child too. So it goes both ways.
Perfect. And for parents who are interested in learning more about homeschooling options in their state, so is in every state, are parents allowed to homeschool? And how do they find out about their eligibility and qualifications for that? What's the resource for them to find out about getting started with homeschooling?
Well, you can go ahead and research your particular state because homeschool laws will vary from state to state. We have the high regulation states, we have the low regulation states as far as homeschool goes. But if you're interested in homeschooling, please research the laws for your particular state. In general, though, all you need is a high school diploma to homeschool your child or an equivalent like a GED. The homeschool, all you have to do is to go ahead and put in your declaration of intent, or DOI as we like to call it. And that can be done online. And that's basically it. You just go and make sure that you're in alignment with the laws. And so when I say that, I mean, certain states want your child to learn certain subjects. So for my particular state in Georgia, I have to teach my children all the core subjects. So that's the social studies, science, math, and the language arts. And so those 4 subjects must be in some way incorporated into our homeschool curriculum. But Georgia is very moderately regulated. And so there's not a lot of, they don't really drill you so far. And I don't think any state really drills you. I think the worst you're going to get is, a government official has to come to your home, or a school official, has to come to your home and look over your homeschool records if you're in a state that has to keep homeschool records. And that's basically, the worst of it. If you like to homeschool, just to reiterate, research the laws for your particular state. And then when you're ready, put in your declaration of intent. And that's it. You're legal. Keep that document printed out. And that's it. You're legal now when you get to homeschool. And your child, in a lot of states, you don't have to register if your child is under 7 years old in a lot of states. But again, check with your state just to make sure. The laws change all the time. So just make sure. And there's also something called the HSLDA. That's the Homeschool Legal Defense. And so if you are worried want to make sure that what you're doing is legal and you're in alignment with everything, they help you to ensure that, they give you legal guidance. And it is a membership program for families. And so in the event also that, let's say you get in trouble, or wrongly accused, the HSLDA will step in and they will provide legal services for you and defend you in that case, provided that, nothing fishy is going on, of course. But so that is an option for the parents that are leery and they want to make sure, I know it's scary because you want to make sure that you're in legal alignment with, your state and everything. And so the HSLDA is a place that you can start. I believe they have all the homeschooling laws by state on their website as well. So you can go to their website and you can check that out. Also have information on my website, 10 things you need to do before you homeschool. So you can go to the homeschoolgenius.com. You can click new to homeschool, and that will take you to the 10 things you need to do to get started. And that is basically everything that you probably need to go ahead and make sure that you are ready to do it.
Perfect. And I will link those on the she.confidential.com website. There will be an episode page for this episode, and there's always a resource section. And so on that resource section, I'll have your website with a link to that 10 things you need to do before you homeschool, and also a link to the Homeschool Legal Defense for the audience to get started there. And then also everyone, just make sure you check with your state's Board of Education, would I guess be first place for you to go to for that declaration of intent and
Right.
to find out about your particular state's laws with regard to homeschooling.
Right.
Excellent. So before we wrap up, do you ladies have any final thoughts or tidbits that you'd like to share with parents, just giving final guidance on just how to balance their children's academics during these really crazy times, and how to balance taking care of themselves while they are taking care of their kids during these really crazy times?
I would say
that's actually one thing I want to mention. Oh, I'm sorry.
you got
And I just thought about that because Nikay, but I forgot to mention, I think Missouri does have a online virtual program. If you want to look into homeschooling, but you're not sure yet, if you kind of want to just test it out, they do have a program called MOCAP. They can also contact their, and this is no Missouri, they have MOCAP, and parents can kind of look into that. And with if they contact their local school district, the school district can give them additional information, because they can definitely transition into homeschooling. That was something that I forgot to mention, and I just reminded myself when I was listening to Nikay speaking.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
But that was just something I wanted to add in that I forgot.
Oh, I appreciate that. I just made a note of it, so I'll add that on the resource section on the website. So thank you for that.
Okay. Oh, no problem.
And so any final thoughts like Jerry Springer, except
And then
he's,
I guess in regards to
just anything that we've covered. I don't know if you ever used to watch the Jerry Springer show. really ratchet, but I watched it faithfully. And
Yeah.
despite how like crazy the fights were or whatever the subject matter was, your grandma had like babies with all your husband's brothers, whatever it was, he would always have this final thought at the end would be so eloquent. You would think he was just talking about saving the elephants. And so I'm like, oh, that's really nice. We'll try to do that on the show a lot. So any final thoughts that you have about anything that we've talked about today? I mean, this was a really like high level conversation because homeschooling, definitely there's so many components to that. And then just everything with talking about transitioning back to this new normal in the classroom and just balancing academics and well-being. We touched on a lot of things, just scratching the surface. So of everything that we discussed, what would you say is the most important thing for parents, particularly moms, to focus on right now?
I guess I would say, I know that a lot of parents like during this time really would want to homeschool, but they don't necessarily have the resources, or they might feel like they can't because they need the income. They need that, if you're living a two-parent income, they need both of those income. Just a single parent income. And I would say that, the formula for your child to thrive is very simple, whether they're in school or whether they're in homeschool. And that is that their environment is conducive to learning. So as long as they feel safe and nurtured in their environment, they are an optimal environment for learning to take place. And so don't worry if your child feels safe, if the environment is conducive to their social and emotional health, that is the main component for a child to be able to learn. No child can learn where they feel unsafe or like they're, unwelcomed or, that sort of thing. So just mindful that, that's all it takes. And so, if your child is in that type of environment, then great. If they're not, then, you can, make the steps to ensure that you can, move them to maybe an environment that is more conducive for them to be able to thrive. And so I just want to throw that out there because not everyone can homeschool, obviously, like a lot of parents want to, but they can't. And so just wanted to make sure that parents understood that, just pay attention to the environment that your child is in is essentially the best. Some home environments aren't the best environments, so there's that, so, that is the formula to learning. So.
And I guess for me, I would say is just, I guess my keyword takeaway is just grace. Again, understanding we're under different times and different expectations. So, if it's not going your way of how you see where you want your child now, or even where you want to be now, again, just give it grace, give it time, keep pursuing it, keep being motivated, encouraging, prayerful, and, just continue to be optimistic, and, it will happen. Definitely. I guess, again, that whole takeaway is, again, just giving that grace and understanding. We're in a totally different time. So things will happen as they happen, as long as you keep pursuing it. I'm not saying giving up, right, but keep pursuing it. Just keep going forward. You will get there.
Thank you. You two are awesome. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you for having us.
Can you provide your website and your Instagram handle? Because I'm following you on Instagram, and I love, like I saw yesterday, I'm like, when you talked about everything you did today, I'm like, but you just did all this stuff for Earth Day yesterday. My goodness. I'm like, I can come live in your house or next door and be a chaperone on some of the activities because y'all have fun.
Yes, we definitely have a lot of fun and can join in on that fun at _homeschool_genius. That's my Instagram handle there. I'm also on Facebook at the Nike Anderson as well. And I share, pretty much the similar things to what I share on Instagram, but a little more informative, post as well. You can also find me at my website, homeschoolgenius.com. So if you're interested in homeschooling, again, you can follow me there. And I have a lot of blog posts about our journey if you're interested in following our journey. And I have a lot of blog posts about how you can make the best of your journey.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I will have the links to your social media and website. All those will be in the YouTube description box and in the description box for the podcast apps. And it'll also be on the episode page for the website, she.confidential.com. So again, thank you so much, Nikkei Anderson and Taryn Williams. I appreciate both of you, not just for giving me your time for a second time, but for everything that you're doing as educators. I mean, it's so undervalued and y'all are really doing God's work. So thank you so much. And my name is Charlene Ketchum, and this is On Her Terms Defined. Thank you for watching, listening. Until next time.